Let's hear from Rebecca Dove. I spoke to her a little earlier. She's the MD of the Hubbub Foundation, an environmental charity that gave evidence to the committee of MPs. I asked her what she thought of the committee's reaction.
First of all, we welcome the efforts being made to find a solution by the Select Committee to what is a really serious environmental problem. So we're delighted that the action is being taken and that the profile is really raising. In terms of the 25p charge, I think we feel that it's harsh, potentially, that the immediate burden of fixing the issue is being, put on the consumer. And 25p is definitely higher than the carrier bag charge. So really, we feel that more testing is required to really assess the impact of charging and whether that nudges people towards using refillable cups.
So what do you think would be the better way? What, sort of a 5 pence charge like the plastic bag charge?
Well, potentially, more experimentation needs to be done. So today, Hubbub are launching a trial with Starbucks, and we're going to be doing a trial in central London in up to 25 stores, introducing a 5p charge, and really seeing what impact that has.
If we consider the amount of these coffee cups that go into landfill, I mean, we have a huge environmental challenge on our hands. If we're going to do something, let's start as we mean to continue.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's 2.5 billion coffee cups used in the UK every year, and only a very small proportion of those are currently being recycled. We've done recycling projects in Manchester and in London. Our campaign in London, the Square Mile Challenge, has already recycled 4 million coffee cups within 9 months. So, there are methods and learning on how to do this. So really, we think that government and industry need to scale up the approaches. Using a charge is perhaps one way of doing this, but there are also other solutions. For example, introducing recycling across the UK, looking at a longer term solution for a better cup that's more easy to dispose.
I'm going to be doing some shopping later, of course, for the weekend. And whether I'm buying, something non-perishable or a food product, very, very often I find that those products are cocooned in far too much packaging. So let's look at that as well. Let's go the whole hog here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've raised a really good point, and our lifestyles are increasingly changing towards being more on the go, and the government needs a coherent strategy for recycling on the go. So that's coffee cups, but also fast food packaging, plastic bottles. There's a slight risk if we just look at issues in isolation, we're going to end up with a bit of a piecemeal approach, and actually we need something more holistic. So I think government needs to recognise that and look at bringing a more coherent strategy together. And then in terms of the burden for fixing the issue, I think that more should be passed on to companies rather than onto the consumer.
We've seen the impact on the environment, on Blue Planet. I think, that particular programme, if I can use the example of that, it just feels to me, though, that it might be a little bit too late, too little too late.
I agree. It's a massive environmental issue. I think 500,000 cups a day end up being littered, for example, and that's just cups that create a big environmental hazard. But we very much feel that, we can't do nothing. We've got to act now. So we're really recommending that the government and industry really take action and start doing more, scaling on the learning that's already happened over the last year.
The consumer's got to be on board with this. You talked about a coherent approach from the government. What would you like the government to do? What else would you like the government to do?
We think that government needs a coherent strategy for recycling on the go and to respond to the Select Committee's recommendations and to really look at the evidence around the campaigns we've done on recycling and how we can scale that across the UK. But certainly we found that this is an issue that the public do care about. So our trials in Manchester and London, which have recycled a huge amount of cups, show that the public do care about this issue. So if the recycling facilities are made available to them and there's some education to go along with that, the public do care and they will recycle. So really it's up to government and industry to kind of put in place those structures so that the public can act and can dispose of their coffee cup responsibly.
Well, certainly action is needed now. I'd like to hear from you this morning. Would you be willing to pay 25 pence more for a takeaway coffee to help improve recycling? That is just a recommendation. You just heard, in fact, from Rebecca Dove, MD of the Hubbub Foundation, the environmental charity that have given evidence to the committee of MPs.